The dress was beautiful and expensive. Marissa twirled in front of the mirror, captivated by her reflection. "How wonderful it is to be married to a wealthy man," she mused. Scott, her husband, worked as a supervisor at a large construction firm. He earned a handsome salary and had affluent friends. What more could a modern, cultured woman like Marissa, who also considered herself gorgeous, need for happiness? Marissa and Scott met a decade ago when her mother, Mrs. Shapiro, was getting married for the 5th time, yet again, briefly. At a cafe, a construction firm was celebrating an anniversary in the adjacent room. Marissa overheard a toast to a young promising man. Intrigued, within half an hour, she was slow dancing with him. Their affair began swiftly. Marissa orchestrated romantic scenarios, prepared Scott gourmet meals, and immediately got acquainted with his mother. Scott, who had graduated with honours from a construction college just 3 years prior, was intelligent but shy. Marissa's vivacious and determined nature stunned him. Charmed by her, he proposed after only a month. 6 months post-wedding, Scott's company, recognising him as a valuable employee, granted him a substantial loan to purchase an apartment. Marissa convinced her husband to buy one near her mother, as Mrs. Shapiro had recently divorced again and constantly needed assistance, not just financially, but also for frequent household repairs. Scott, unable to refuse his mother-in-law, became her de facto handyman. One day, he gently suggested hiring a locksmith. This suggestion was met with shrill protests. They claimed a potential criminal might appear, and Mrs. Shapiro, a woman of refinement with a delicate psyche, couldn't tolerate harsh words or the smell of alcohol. Scott didn't broach the subject again, though he privately wondered how her fragile sensibilities had survived her years working at a liquor store. Scott left home at 18 to attend a distant college. Initially, he returned annually for vacations, but eventually stayed to work part-time in the city. After graduating, he remained there. A firm noticed his potential and hired him immediately. Scott, thrilled to be valued, worked so diligently that he never took time off. When his mother informed him of his father's death, Scott immediately started to pack for home. However, Marissa, then pregnant, complained of stomach pains and insisted on seeing a doctor. At the city hospital, her mother's friend examined her and declared Marissa's pregnancy high risk, advising against upsetting her or leaving her alone. The mother-in-law promptly vanished, citing urgent business, leaving Scott to inform his mother he couldn't attend the funeral. His mother wept silently, but didn't reproach him. Scott sent money and considered the matter settled. Scott's mother never complained, only gently inquiring when he might visit. In a decade, Scott returned just once, needing his birth certificate. He enjoyed his mother's pies, visited a classmate, and left after 2 days. Scott was relieved his mother didn't burden him with her requests. He avoided looking around too closely, not wanting to trouble his conscience. He had enough to do at her home. As he departed, his mother clung to him for a long while. He realised how small she was, barely reaching his chin. It had been another 6 years since Scott visited his home. Marissa and their 8-year-old daughter, Angela, had never been there at all. They claimed that if his mother lived on the seacoast, they might consider going. But as it was, what was there to do in this backwater? Vacations were meant for resorts and relaxation, not counting scrawny chickens. Marissa was still standing in front of the mirror when Scott burst into the apartment, visibly distressed. "Marissa, I'm in trouble," he said hoarsely. "There's been an accident at the construction site. A man was injured. I warned them to fix everything and even forbade work in this wind, but nobody listened. Now, the bosses are making it look like I forced the workers to risk their lives. How much money do we have saved? I need to pay for the injured man's treatment to avoid a lawsuit." Marissa stared at Scott, wide-eyed and silent for a long time. Finally, she asked, "Were you fired?" Scott nodded, but quickly added, "Don't worry, even if not at this salary, but I'll find something." "I don't need something," Marissa said with a sneer. "And we don't have any saved money. We spent it all on food, clothes, and helping my mother. You know what? I'm filing for divorce. I can find the money to buy out your part of the apartment. That's how you'll pay off the injured man." "Marissa, what are you saying? Divorce?" Scott was horrified. "We're a family. We should support each other. And Angela, how will she manage without me? The child needs a father. I love her." "Oh, please," Marissa snorted. "You love her. Her real father loves her too. He's going to raise her." "What real father?" Scott asked, bewildered. "What are you talking about, Marissa?" "Did you think I married you out of love? What a fool you are. You were just convenient. Good salary, giving me every penny, helping my mother, listen to my every word. You thought you were indispensable to us. I've been cheating on you for 11 years. You didn't even notice that Angela was born with dark skin and looked nothing like you. She knows you're not her father, by the way, and has been talking to her real daddy for a long time. No one will notice your absence." Scott was speechless. For years, he had convinced himself they had a strong family. He saw, of course, that his wife wasn't affectionate, and his daughter never approached him to talk or for a hug. But he thought that wasn't relevant. The main thing was that they were together. Now he realized they had never truly been a family. He was just convenient for them. Scott had no choice. He signed over his part of the apartment to his wife, took the money, paid off the injured worker, and went to his mother. The woman was surprised and delighted to see her son on the doorstep of her house with large bags. "Are you staying long?" she asked. "You won't leave in 2 days, will you? Have you brought your girls?" She looked around, hoping to see her daughter-in-law and granddaughter, but Scott was alone and visibly dejected. "Mother, I'm here for good, if that's all right," the man asked quietly, afraid he might be turned away. But his mother didn't even ask questions. She just gently stroked his cheek and nodded. Scott hugged his diminutive mother tenderly and felt an unfamiliar stinging in his eyes. When Scott stepped into the yard, he was shocked to see how his childhood home had become. The roof was cracked in many places, haphazardly patched with pieces of slate. Apparently, his mother had climbed up there herself, trying to fix it. Large holes were covered with linoleum, and some of the window panes were cracked and taped over. Cold shivers ran down Scott's spine. He had lived in luxury, giving all his money to Marissa, providing for and serving her frivolous mother, while his own mother lived in such poor conditions and never once complained or reproached him. Scott entered the house, went to his mother, and knelt before her. "Forgive me, my dear. Fate led me astray, but I'll make it right. You'll see. I'll make you a queen." "No, son, I don't want to be a queen. I just want to be your mum," his mother said, stroking her son's head, as she did when he was a child. Soon, Scott found work at the district centre, where his house-building experience proved valuable. Instead of restoring his parents' house, he began building a new one next door, and then there was found a mistress for the house, a neighbour, Roxy. Roxy had only been 10 when Scott left for university, harbouring a childish love for him. In his absence, she married and had a son, Lee. Her husband's infidelity led to their separation, and she refused all his pleas to return. One evening, while delivering milk to Scott's mother, Roxy saw Scott and recalled her feelings. Her 7-year-old son, Lee, befriended Scott, first fixing a bicycle together, then going fishing. Lee eventually told Scott, "Uncle Scott, my mum has loved you for a long time. You should marry her. I promise I'll behave." Scott laughed, but after a couple of sleepless nights, he proposed to Roxy. To everyone's surprise, they formed a warm, loving family. Scott's mother often cried tears of joy.